Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. This is Lori Wilson with you on Community Voice. It is the 10th of January, and we have in the broadcast bungalow today Duane Hack, who is the chapter president of West Georgia Right to Life. Good morning, Duane.
Good morning, Lori. Thanks for the invite.
Oh, I'm so glad that you're here. We've got so much to talk about, but first of all, we just want to tell everyone that the 22nd is a special day of this month, right?
Yes, over in Atlanta. Roe v. Wade was put through the Supreme Court in 1973, and so this is, if I do my math right, this is the 46th anniversary of Roe v. Wade. The week of the, I guess it would be the week of the 19th. But down in Atlanta, there's numerous people from all across the state, really, down South Georgia, North Georgia, and they come up to Atlanta. We meet at Liberty Park, which is right next to the Capitol, and it starts at 11 o'clock. And there's a time of prayer, there's a singing, and there's also some speakers that come in.
Who you got coming in this year?
You know what? I don't recall. I know the brothers came last year, the two Christian brothers. They gave a speech last year. This year, I can't recall who it is, but that's till about 12. And then from 12 to 12:30, there's some state representatives, senators that come out, talk a little bit. And then we go ahead somewhere around 12:45 to 1 o'clock. We make a circle all around downtown Atlanta, a very silent visual memorial to the 60 million that have been aborted since 1973.
How do we know that number? I mean, I imagine is that a hard number?
There's two states that don't report, but this is all through the CDC, and there's a company, there's a group called the Guttmeyer Institute.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they're really a pro-abort marketing firm that puts numbers together, but they report numbers every year. And so the last number we had was 60 million. It was like 60,100,000, but that would have been for 2016. They're typically about a year and a half behind. So 60 million since 73. And that's what we know of. We don't know about Rhode Island. There's another state that doesn't participate in the survey as well.
That sounds like a ghoulish number for pro-abortion people to want to keep track of, Yeah. 60 million, yay.
Well, and I always tell people, I go to churches locally, and we can probably talk more about what we do as a local chapter. But, in my mind, 60 million, it's a number. Okay, so let's put some connotation to it visually. And so I always go when I'm doing our church presentations, we talk in your mind, look at Arkansas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, and Maryland, and kind of put that grouping in your mind and wipe
60
it
million?
out.
That's 60 million people?
Wipe it
all
out.
Of those?
It's gone.
Huh.
It's gone. 60 million people. Those could have been the next, research scientists for cancer or for president or, just goes on and on and on. But that's 60 million population right now.
Oh, let me back up a little bit then. While we kind of absorb that statistic.
Yeah.
Which, when you put it in the terms in which you just put it, it's stunning.
Devastating.
It is devastating.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that probably in the second segment. But let's just get to know you a little bit. Duane, you're not new to the bungalow, but you're the chapter president, West Georgia Right to Life. Mm-hmm. What's your role? What's your function? What drew you to this? How long have you been? Just fill us in.
Yeah, give you a 30,000-foot view.
Yes,
okay,
please.
Cool. Yeah, no, I live in Carrollton. I attend Liberty Baptist Church in Bowden. I've been in the Right to Life movement probably since the late 80s. And how I really got involved was we were going to church in Montgomery where we were living, my wife and I and children. And we had somebody come in and speak to our church and said something about right to life and pro-life. And, I'd always, come up believing in the right to life, but didn't really know about it. And so this person challenged us and said, what are you doing to make a difference in the world today in the Right to Life movement? I wasn't doing anything. I was sitting in a pew teaching a Sunday school class, but really not getting involved with Right to Life. So we moved to Carrollton. I can't remember the date that we moved, but we moved up here, and I got involved with Georgia Right to Life. Mm-hmm. And so Georgia Right to Life is the state chapter. And then met a couple people here that were involved with it, got really engaged with them and they resigned their position.
When you say you got engaged, what pulled you even further?
You know, there was something inside of me that, well, for instance, and I think we're on Facebook. I mean, this is something that they showed at the meeting. I'm going to give you one.
I think you gave me one of these
This
ages
is
ago. Should I hold it up for? Oh, by the way, we are on Facebook Live.
Okay, cool.
Other camera. Hey, everybody. Okay, so
That's a 12-week babe in the womb.
Seriously?
12 weeks old.
So
exact
12 weeks?
size, exact weight, everything, Lord.
I'll hold it up to the microphone. So you little
everything.
earlobes, eyes,
Nose,
mouth.
everything.
12 weeks is, when
12
does the heart
weeks.
start beating?
3 to 4.
That's all.
3 to 4 weeks, you start hearing the heartbeat. You can pick up sound. You go to PRC, which I'm on the advisory board, and I work with them, some Pregnancy Resource Center.
Okay.
And, they go in and do ultrasounds, and you can pick that up. But that's 12 weeks. So let me give you another math statistic, because this is what really got me involved. When I saw this and started listening to this gentleman, 12% of all abortions, 12 to 14% of all abortions occur after this size.
Mm-hmm. How
So
many?
12 to 14%
Okay.
after 12 weeks. Okay, there's one number that says 12.5, another one says 13. So do the math. 60 million times even 10%. That's
Okay.
6 million babies that have been aborted past this size.
They're pain capable, do we know?
Yes.
Obviously,
We say the statistics that we have from Georgia Right to Life is pain capable at about 14 weeks. So they're able to feel, and unfortunately, the statistics show us that they're pain capable 3 times the amount of an adult like you and I. So you go in and get a pin, put it in your finger, and it hurts. Multiply that times 3 times, and that, because their raw nerves are so raw. Their nerve ends are so raw that they feel it even 3 times as much. So that's really, circling back around, that's what got me involved when I saw that and said, this isn't China. This isn't a third world country. This is America. Why are we doing this? The Lord have mercy on us
Right.
for this. I mean, that's the innocent blood that's been spilled.
Just to play devil's advocate, and I have heard this from some of my more cynical friends, and they'll say, well, the vast majority of aborted fetuses would have been born into great poverty, single parent home, drug addict, that sort of thing. Yeah. What's your response to that?
My response is, when did we become gods? When did we make that choice? It's a whole separate DNA line. The babe in the womb is a whole separate DNA line. It's a whole different human being. When did we become making a choice of what lives and what doesn't live? Because that's a slippery slope. When we start doing that, we're already on it. When we start saying, okay, so where do you draw the line at? Do you draw the line at, okay, baby, because somebody has slightly Down syndrome, you're going to go ahead and abort that baby?
Now, I've seen conversations about that very thing recently.
Right. We have a individual that used to go to our church, and I won't give their names out, but they're on the front cover of a brochure. And they went in for a doctor's visit, and the doctor said, you know what, this doesn't look good. You guys might want to consider abortion. She said, no, I'm a Christian. That's a human being. Mm-hmm. The baby was born. She has some challenges with epilepsy. Not epilepsy, the ability to walk in her legs, okay? But otherwise, she's perfectly fine, healthy baby. So where do you draw that line, Lori, that says, okay, I'm going to make the determination that human being isn't allowed to live?
Well, and maybe after the first break, we'll talk more about that, because just as a teaser, what do we hear from the other side? We hear, it's a woman's right to choose. It's her body. It's, so let's just see what your responses are to that and many other questions. But first, we're going to hear from Tanner Health System. And in 60 seconds, we'll be back with Duane Hack. We're talking about the 46th anniversary of Roe v. Wade, March for Life on Tuesday, the 22nd. So stick around and hear more.
At Tanner, we're advancing health throughout West Georgia and East Alabama, because we know that exceptional care isn't based on how many patients we serve, but how well we serve them. That's why we're focused on quality, delivering the best possible care for our patients. It's why we're expanding our clinical services and building new facilities to serve our growing community. And it's why we're looking beyond our hospitals and medical practices to develop sustainable wellness and preventive health programs in our region. What makes a hospital great has changed. It's not how many beds we have. It's how well we care for the neighbors who need them. Delivering the right care to every patient, every time, is how Tanner is advancing health with medicine beyond measure. Learn more at tanner.org or find a physician on our medical staff by calling 770-214-CARE.
And we're back. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the second segment of Community Voice, the Thursday, January 10th edition. This is Lori Wilson with you and Duane Hack, chapter president of West Georgia Right to Life. We were talking over the break about just sort of getting into the arguments on either side of this abortion question. Yeah. But let's go back to the history that you mentioned as sort of our entree. 1973 Roe v. Wade. Mm-hmm. What precisely was the ruling?
Okay. Yeah,
in that case.
Good start off. Okay, there was two decisions that day, which a lot of people don't know that.
I didn't.
Roe v. Wade was 73, and there was actually a Roe person, and she has later in life came out and said she was pro-life, and I think you've heard the story. She came out and said she was pro-life and all that. So what Roe v. Wade did was a 7-2 Supreme Court decision, and what they said was a woman has a right for an abortion. And they used a legal ruling in the past about the Privacy Act. It was in the Constitution, and they spun that as saying it's a Women's Privacy Act that allowed for abortion. But the second ruling that day, which a lot of people don't know about, and it was Doe versus Bolton. The morning was Roe v. Wade. The afternoon was Doe versus Bolton. Doe versus Bolton was a Georgia case that went all the way up to the Supreme Court from the state of Georgia. And it was a Jane Doe versus the Attorney General Bolton from Georgia. Georgia at that time was the most conservative pro-life state in the union. Bolton said that no, you can have an abortion based on Supreme Court ruling of this morning, but you can't have it for a specific period of time because of all the restrictions that Georgia had on it. The Supreme Court made the ruling that said in Doe versus Bolton, yes, a woman can now have an abortion, and they can have it all 9 months of pregnancy, up to the last minute to the last second, which is still in the law today.
Yeah, all the way to the end.
Just before you could be on the birth table getting ready to give birth and can have an abortion.
Who was it that famously said, so famous that I don't remember who it was, that a fetus is viable only after the mom chooses to take it home from the hospital?
There's some religious individuals. I mean, there's some religious organizations that believe in that.
Wow.
I mean, it's just crazy. But and that's the part that a lot of people don't understand. It's all 9 months. But was really crazy. Right after that ruling came about, here's what one of the writers, the opinion writers for that stated. And let me find my note here because I want to make sure that I speak it out correctly. But one of the opinion writers wrote that if the calling of personhood ever existed, that Roe v. Wade would be overcome based upon the Constitution. So basically, he said in his opinion that if the ruling of the Roe v. Wade decision ever comes down to the point of personhood, where personhood becomes law, now that babe in the womb is protected by the 14th Amendment. And the 14th Amendment reads, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property, which due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the law.
So the argument is that it's not this growth in a woman's uterus is not a person yet.
That's correct.
Okay.
Right. That's the argument.
So their whole argument hinges on us not viewing, what is it, unviable tissue mass?
Yeah. Yeah, and we're pushing really hard for personhood. Abortion, yes, is the major factor of all this. But if you can ever declare the babe in the womb as a person, number one, it has constitutional rights, and number two, it defines the broader spectrum. Other diseases, other issues within the womb that possibly that babe would have the right to live under the 14th Amendment of the Constitution.
So why? Are there any arguments, pro-abortion arguments, that you think are a lot more hard to counter than just these questions.
Yeah, well, let me do it to you.
Okay.
I wrote a letter to the editor, and I'm hoping that it gets into our local newspaper. But there's 3 different talking points that we address all the time with pro-aborts. Okay. Their first one is size. They say, well, it's just small. This is only a 12-week baby. This is only a 12-week tissue in the womb. It's small. And our counterpunch to that is, okay, so if I have 2 14-year-olds and one of them is 5'8" and the other one is 5'1", are we going to abort the smaller one because of its size? Are we going to hold that against it because of its size? This is still a babe. This is still a human being. So how can you tell me that it doesn't have a right to life even though it's just small in its size? Secondly is location. They say, well, because it's in the mother's womb, it hasn't taken its first breath. It hasn't come out of the womb yet. It's still within that womb of the mother. So it's because of location. And we say, okay, so if I have 2 individuals and one lives in Roopville and one lives in Temple, I'm going to go ahead and abort the Temple one because of its location. Does that really matter? Does location matter?
Well, I mean, that one, I'm not arguing for abortion, but I mean, the baby until a certain point can't survive outside the womb. So I kind of get the location. I get that, although we're also looking at an entity, we'll say, within the womb that has maybe different. It's not the mother. The entity is not the mother.
That's correct.
Probably it might very well have a different blood type, right?
Well, it's a whole different DNA line. The chromosomes are different in the babe versus the mother. So it is a whole separate entity to itself. And then the last one we talk about is dependency. Sometimes people say, well, that babe is so dependent on its mother. And we say, well, so does dependency really matter? So if I'm taking high blood pressure medicine or if I'm taking treatments for cancer or something, and that's the high blood pressure medicine is my dependency to live, then why should that matter if this babe is dependent upon its mother to live?
Well, it's kind of a rich argument coming from liberals who, after the babies are born, love to make them dependent on the government. So
yeah, that's right. It's a good flip, but you're absolutely right. So those are the challenges, and then you always see the my choice, my decision signs at all the rallies and all that. You
stay out of my body or something like that.
Yeah, you did have a choice, and you chose at that point to become pregnant, and so
that's where the argument really ends up breaking down. That's where you go, look, what causes pregnancy. You had a pregnancy. Oh, don't know. And then that's just a bridge too far, and then conversation just stops down. It just shuts down.
Yeah. You had that choice.
How dare you?
So those are the battles that we face, and again, we've got the talking points. They've got the talking points.
Where are you going to ever? I mean, what hope do we have to at least dial back Roe v. Wade?
Personhood. Personhood is our battle cry right now.
Okay.
I mean, it is the battle cry, and we're seeing more and more of states jumping on to some kind of a personhood. We had a personhood amendment here in Carroll County. Well, it was a straw ballot poll several years ago, and 68% of the people, it was on our ballot in 2010, and there was a lot of legal verbiage in it, which I wasn't for. But at the end, 68% of the people said that we would be in favor of having a personhood amendment to the Georgia Constitution, which would state that is a viable living human being within the womb of the mother. So that's our battle cry right now, because everything goes back to it being a person. I mean, common sense tells me if that's not a person, then tell me what it is. It's got a heart. It's got all the pieces that it needs. It just needs time to develop and grow.
But then I don't know this new president of Planned Parenthood, but I remember Cecile Richards just saying, "Look, if it's mine to I have the right to choose, while the baby's life is so dependent on me. If I'm the carrier of this bacteria," she makes it sound like, then it's my choice.
It's kind of interesting you said that. I was talking to somebody who was a pro Planned Parenthood person. I said, so what is it then? She said, well, it's just tissue.
Yeah.
It's just tissue within a human being.
Unviable tissue mass.
Okay, it's an unviable human mass. So when you when Planned Parenthood got caught taking all this unviable tissue, it's selling it. What did you call it? Well, we call it human tissue. Okay, so you're speaking with forked tongue. Here it's unviable tissue. Here it's human mass that could be used for experiments, for et cetera, et cetera. So you speak with different tongues and different tongues.
On that thought, let's take a quick break. When we get back, more with Duane Hack. We're going to talk more about the March for Life coming up, and also I want to talk about an article that I just read just last night about something the new president of Planned Parenthood said on Twitter, which is always a great conversation starter. So stick around, everyone, after this from Tanner Health System.
At Tanner, we're advancing health throughout West Georgia and East Alabama because we know that exceptional care isn't based on how many patients we serve, but how well we serve them. That's why we're focused on quality, delivering the best possible care for our patients. It's why we're expanding our clinical services and building new facilities to serve our growing community. And it's why we're looking beyond our hospitals and medical practices to develop sustainable wellness and preventive health programs in our region. What makes a hospital great has changed. It's not how many beds we have. It's how well we care for the neighbors who need them. Delivering the right care to every patient, every time, is how Tanner is advancing health with medicine beyond measure. Learn more at tanner.org. or find a physician on our medical staff by calling 770-214-CARE.
And we're back. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the final segment of today's edition of Community Voice. This is Lori Wilson with you. Duane Hack and Duane Hack, Chapter President, West Georgia Right to Life. We are having a conversation about the upcoming 46th anniversary, if you want to put it that way, I guess, of Roe v. Wade and Doe v. Bolton. I had forgotten about Doe v. Bolton.
Yeah, that was a big one. That's right from Georgia. I mean, it started at the roots of Georgia and worked all the way through the local judicial systems, the circuit courts, up all the way through the Supreme Court. Abortion all 9 months. It's legal. This is America. I mean, that's the part that really gets to me. Is this is America. This isn't
China, Russia,
yeah, North Korea. I mean, this is America that we're talking about.
We're talking about human lives, and we do know so much more. And we have better technology and processes. I don't know if that's the word, but babies can be born earlier and earlier, and still be viable, and still be be able to leave the hospital healthy. And
yeah, I had a friend of mine whose child was born at 26 weeks.
Wow.
Stayed in the hospital for a while and perfectly fine,
So it was. We have all these babies. It was 60 million in some. Would that have caused overpopulation in the United States? Should we be happy that we're not so overpopulated? That's something that I hear a lot about.
Yeah, no. I mean, we hear that sometimes. And again, you don't want to put a financial dollar to an aborted baby. To me, But there was a gentleman who he was out of Gainesville, Georgia. He's a financial guy, Larry something. I forget his name, but I was reading his article in preparation for this, and he talked about the financial losses by those that were aborted between the years of 76 and 96. If you took just that period of time where abortions really spiked, simply because people were still maybe ignorant to the fight for anti-abortion. He put a number of $202 billion that we would have lost because all those people would have at one time put money into Social Security. Those would have been working individuals that, from a Social Security standpoint, would have placed funds into the Social Security system, which, now you hear different rumors is going to be defunct in 2034 or whatever that number is at. But, so by losing 60 million, how much of those funds did we lose that enabled Social Security to keep going?
I wonder if we'd have an immigration problem now, because the argument is we need workers. Yeah.
Could be.
So there are so many elements to this argument, obviously. So, emotional, scientific, just the spectrum. But what would you say the pro-abortion's essential argument is? Is it choice? Is it some sort of, hey, let me live my life and I don't want to have to suffer the very serious consequences of my life choices?
Financial, it's my body, would be typically the two talking points. It's my body, hey, look, it's protected. I'm protected by the law. I'm protected by the Supreme Court. You're interfering with my personal life. That's probably the number one. And unfortunately, abortion has become a situation of convenience.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no telling how many folks I've talked to who have had family members or others have had 2 or 3 abortions. Just the other day, I was at a local hardware store and talking to somebody cutting some wood, and he said, my neighbor, she's had 3 abortions.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, and they had a child out of wedlock. I mean, just stuff like that 40, I got the number here. We're going to talk about how many abortions have occurred, which we already did.
Mm-hmm.
But in 2014, here's some statistics, which I don't want to get deep in the weeds in it. But 60% of the women that have had abortions were in their 20s.
Oh, man.
60%. So that's the reason why we're going to West Georgia. I'm partnering with another organization, and we're going to put up a board. They're going to talk about Christ and who is God, but then we're going to have some questions that we're going to ask about when does life begin?
Mm-hmm.
When do you call us a person? To try to get that age group of 18 up to 24.
Are you going to get any pushback, do you think?
I did it 3 years ago, and I was very surprised how positive it was.
Okay.
Yeah, I was very surprised how positive it was. We didn't really have any apples thrown at us or tomatoes or anything. I mean, they were real positive, asking questions. Because I don't want to get into an argument with somebody. I just want to lay the facts, and then in their silent time, sit and think about this is a baby at 12 weeks.
Yeah.
During their own special time. 59% of the women that have had abortions have more than one abortion. 59% of the people have more than one. 86% have been unmarried that have had abortions. 75% said the reason why they're doing it is economical disadvantaged. They can't do it. 62% had a religious affiliation, which surprised me. They've heard the word preached before.
Cecile Richards, she said, she proudly said, I think she has 3 children, but if she ever got pregnant again, she's going to have an abortion. And that was just so cool. I remember people going, oh, yeah.
Yeah,
she's really walking a talk.
and what's we talk about the minorities, and in the black community in the state of Georgia, the black community represents 30% of our population, but 60% of the abortions occur in the black community. So put your arms around that. 30% of Georgia's population are of the black African American community, but 60% of the abortions occur in that area. So you have to think a little bit deeper. Think about what the money line. Planned Parenthood, why is it that they always put these abortuaries up in the lower income areas? Why is it that it's in West Atlanta?
Why is it?
Columbus? Well, because to me, they're using that as a venue that says, hey, look, we can help you get through this. You're having a tough time. Why not an abortion? This will help you from your financial standpoint. And they're getting $555 million from us taxpayers to perform abortions across the country.
Say that.
$550 million they receive in federal grants. Planned Parenthood does.
So the government somehow, at some point, accepted the premise that it was a public good.
Right. Well, because you go to the website and look at what they do. They say mammograms. They don't have a license for mammograms.
That's right.
Yeah, they just third party it.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff that they third party out. But they're receiving our tax dollars, and again, it's a nut and shell game. They say, no, we're not using that for abortions.
And we have minute and a half left. Yeah. When you do your demonstration on the 22nd around the state capitol, are you going to encounter protesters?
Oh, absolutely. We go right through Georgia State.
Yeah.
We go right up the road. We go right up the road underneath the overpass at Georgia State.
Our universities are so radicalized these days that abortion is that's just an article of faith for those guys.
And it's a shame because Planned Parenthood does try to capture that lower income, either black population or minority populations. And Margaret Sanger even said back in her statement, Birth Control Review, she said here, the African Americans and the poor are as human weeds, reckless breeders spawning human beings who never should have been born.
Nice.
Why is it that 8% of all Planned Parenthood facilities are located in inner city depressed areas with high concentration of minority population?
Just think about that, everybody. That's our takeaway. Just think about the cynicism behind this whole movement. Duane Hack, thank you so much for being with us today.
You bet.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for being with us. We'll be back in 23 and a half hours. So just set your clock. Bye.